The giant space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was the size of a small moon and had thousands of lights blinking across its surface. This was the Galactic Council Station, where the smartest beings in the galaxy came to meet and talk about important things. Inside the main meeting room, dozens of different alien creatures sat around a huge circular table. The room was filled with strange sounds and smells. Some aliens looked like walking crystals that made tinkling noises when they moved. Others were like floating clouds of gas that changed colors when they spoke. There were bug-like creatures with too many eyes and some that looked like living energy trapped in glass containers. Today was the monthly cultural meeting. Each species would share something special from their homeworld. The crystal beings had shown beautiful light patterns that told stories of their ancient past. The gas creatures had performed a dance that moved through 17 dimensions at once. The bug aliens had shared poems that could only be understood by creatures with compound eyes. But today, everyone was looking at the newest member of the council. The humans. Ambassador Zethkri was a tall crystal being whose body looked like a living diamond. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he laughed. "So the humans think they have culture to share with us," he said, his crystal body shining with amusement. "How interesting." Commander Ishandra floated nearby. She was made of purple gas that swirled and moved like smoke. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "Yes, very interesting indeed. A species that still burns chemicals to fly through space. They can teach us about art." The other aliens around the table began to chatter and buzz with laughter. The Mindari, who looked like tall gray beings with huge heads, spoke to each other without moving their mouths. They could read thoughts, and right now their thoughts were full of jokes about the humans. "They have not even learned to live forever," said one of the Mindari. "How can they understand true beauty?" The collective was there too. They looked like metal robots, but each one was connected to billions of others across the galaxy. They all spoke at the same time, their voices making a strange harmony. "Our calculations show that human art forms are simple mathematical patterns. Basic, primitive, not worthy of study. The energy beings called luminance glowed brighter when they were amused. Right now they were very bright. We have existed since the birth of stars," they said in voices like singing electricity. "What could these young creatures possibly show us that we have not seen before?" Dr. Elena Vasquez sat quietly at the human section of the table. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with the Earth symbol on it. Next to her sat an old, battered metal box with buttons and a handle on top. The other aliens had been staring at it all morning, wondering what primitive technology the humans had brought. "The humans have been in space for less than 100 of their years," laughed Ambassador Zethkri. "We have been traveling between stars for thousands of centuries. What wisdom could they possibly possess?" Dr. Vasquez listened to all the laughter and jokes. She had heard it all before. Ever since humans had been allowed to join the Galactic Council, the other species had treated them like children. They thought humans were cute but stupid. They made jokes about human technology, human lifespans, human emotions. "Tell us, human," said Commander Ishandra, her gas form rippling with what might have been laughter. "What great achievement have you brought to share with the advanced civilizations of the galaxy?" Dr. Vasquez stood up slowly. She was much smaller than most of the other beings in the room, but she did not seem nervous or scared. "We have brought music," she said in a clear, calm voice. The room exploded with laughter. The crystal beings chimed like broken bells. The gas creatures swirled faster. The metal robots made sounds like machinery breaking down. Even the serious Mindari could not hide their amusement. "Music?" wheezed Ambassador Zethkri. "You mean organized sound waves, vibrations in the air? This is what you consider your greatest cultural achievement." "We know about sound," said the collective in their strange, many-voiced harmony. "It is simply atmospheric pressure changes that affect hearing organs. We have studied all possible mathematical combinations of frequencies. There is nothing new to learn." "Sound is primitive," added the luminance. We communicate through direct energy transfer. We share thoughts through quantum connections. Why would anyone waste time making noise? Dr. Vasquez waited for the laughter to die down. Then she reached over and patted the old metal box next to her. This device contains something we call music. It is how humans express their deepest feelings and thoughts. It is how we connect to each other and to the universe itself. Feelings, snorted one of the Mindari. Emotions are inefficient. They cloud judgment and waste mental energy. Logical beings have no need for such things. The human brain is simple, agreed Commander Ishandra. They only use a small part of it. They cannot even live for more than a few decades. What could such limited creatures possibly create that would interest us? Dr. Vasquez smiled a small, patient smile. Would you like to hear some human music? I promise it will not hurt you. The aliens looked at each other. Some of them whispered in languages that sounded like static electricity or breaking glass. Finally, Ambassador Zethkri spoke for all of them. Very well, human. We will listen to your music, but do not expect us to be impressed. We have seen the birth and death of galaxies. We have created wonders that reshape reality itself. We have composed symphonies of pure mathematics that can alter the flow of time. Your primitive sound waves cannot possibly compare to such achievements. Show us this music, said the collective. We will analyze its mathematical structure and explain to you why it is inferior to our art forms. Dr. Vasquez nodded and placed her hand on the old metal box. It was called a boombox, though none of the aliens knew that name. It had been built on Earth over 50 years ago, and it had traveled across space to reach this room. Inside it was a small disc that contained something the aliens could not imagine. Before I play this, Dr. Vasquez said, I want you to know that this music was created by a human who lived over 200 years ago. His name was Ludwig van Beethoven. He was completely deaf when he wrote this piece. He never heard it played. Deaf creature made sounds? Laughed Ambassador Zethkri. How is that even possible? He felt the music in his mind and heart, Dr. Vasquez explained. He wrote it down on paper using symbols, and other humans learned to play it on instruments. Inefficient, said the collective. Why not simply transmit the data directly from brain to brain? Because, said Dr. Vasquez, the journey is part of the art. She pressed a button on the boombox. A small red light came on. The aliens leaned forward, expecting to hear whatever crude noise the humans had managed to create. Prepare to be disappointed, whispered Commander Ishandra to Ambassador Zethkri. Dr. Vasquez looked around the room at all the advanced beings who thought they knew everything about art and beauty and truth. She thought about the composer who had never heard his greatest work. She thought about all the humans throughout history who had created music in times of joy and sorrow, love and loss. Then she pressed play. The first notes of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony began to fill the room. The first sound that came from the small human device was soft and low. It started as a single note, deep and rich, that seemed to come from the machine's tiny speakers. Then another note joined it, and another, building slowly like a sunrise. Ambassador Zethkri's crystal body made a small chiming sound. He had not meant to do it. The sound had just happened when the music touched his crystalline structure. He looked around quickly, hoping no one had noticed. What is this pattern? Asked one of the collective robots. Its voice sounded confused, which was strange because the collective was never confused about anything. The music grew stronger. More instruments joined the melody. There were strings that sang like voices and horns that called like distant thunder. The sound filled the room completely, wrapping around each alien like warm water. Commander Ishandra's purple gas form began to move in a way she had never moved before. Instead of her usual random swirling, her particles started to pulse in time with the music. She tried to stop it, but her body would not listen to her mind. This is impossible, she whispered. But her voice shook in rhythm with the sounds coming from the human box. The Mindari were having the strangest experience of all. They were telepathic beings who lived in a world of pure thought. They had no emotions because emotions were messy and got in the way of clear thinking. But as the music played, something was happening to them that they had never felt before. One of the Mindari, whose name was impossible for humans to pronounce, suddenly felt what could only be called sadness. Not logical sadness with a clear cause, but deep, beautiful sadness that made him want to cry. He had never wanted to cry before. He did not even know that he could cry. "What is happening to us?" he asked his fellow Mindari through their thought. "Connection. I do not know," came the reply. "But I feel something warm and strange and wonderful." The music continued to build. It was like a story being told without words. There were moments of quiet beauty, like walking through a peaceful forest. Then there were parts that sounded like storms and battles and great adventures. The aliens found themselves following this story, even though they did not understand how sound waves could tell stories. The luminants, who were beings of pure energy, started to glow brighter and dimmer in time with the music. Their light changed colors too, moving through shades of blue and gold and silver that matched the feelings the music was creating. They had never changed colors based on feelings before. They had never had feelings before. "This is not possible," said one of the luminants, but its voice was full of wonder instead of disbelief. "We are energy. We do not feel. We do not respond to primitive sound vibrations." But even as it spoke, its light pulsed with the rhythm of the human music, the crystal. Beings were having their own strange experience. Ambassador Zethkri's body was resonating with the music in ways that made him feel like he was singing along. Each note that played seemed to find a matching frequency in his crystalline structure. It was as if the human music was designed specifically for his kind of being. "How do they know our resonance patterns?" he asked. But no one answered because everyone was too busy listening. The music reached a part that was both sad and beautiful at the same time. It spoke of loss and hope, of endings and beginnings. The aliens did not have words for what they were feeling, but they felt it anyway. It was like learning a new language that was written in the heart instead of the mind. The collective robots were perhaps the most confused of all. They were connected to billions of other robots across the galaxy, all sharing information at the speed of light. But now, for the first time ever, they were all quiet. Every robot in their network had stopped what it was doing to listen to the music coming from the meeting room. "Analysis incomplete," said one of the robots in the room. "Pattern recognition failing. Mathematical structure does not match emotional response." "Emotional response?" asked another robot. "We do not have emotional responses. We are logical machines." But they were wrong. Something in the music was reaching past their programming, past their circuits and data banks, and touching something deeper. Something that might have been what humans called a soul. The music grew even more beautiful. It spoke of friends and love and home. It painted pictures and sound of mountains and oceans and starry skies. The aliens began to understand that this was not just organized noise. This was a language more complex than any they had ever encountered. Dr. Vasquez watched. All of this happened without saying a word. She could see the changes in each alien species. She could see them struggling to understand what they were experiencing. She had seen this happen before, the first time humans had played music for other intelligent species. Music had a power that crossed all boundaries. The symphony reached a part where all the instruments played together in perfect harmony. The sound was so beautiful and so complete that it seemed to contain all of creation within it. At that moment, something impossible happened. Ambassador Zethkri's crystal body began to hum in perfect tune with the music. Commander Ashandra's gas form pulsed in exact rhythm with the beat. The Mindari found themselves swaying together as if they were dancing. The collective robots moved their metal bodies in time with the melody. The luminance glowed in patterns that matched the rise and fall of the music. For the first time in the history of the galaxy, beings from different worlds, different biologies, different ways of thinking were all moving together in perfect harmony. They were not trying to do it. They were not being forced to do it. The music was simply bringing out something in each of them that connected to something in all the others. "This is impossible," whispered Ambassador Zethkri, but he did not. Stop humming. We are different species, said Commander Ishandra, but she did not stop pulsing in rhythm. We should not be able to share experiences like this, said the Mindari, but they did not stop swaying. Our programming does not allow for this behavior, said the collective, but they did not stop moving. We are beings of pure energy, said the luminance, but they did not stop glowing in harmony. The music built to a crescendo that filled the entire room with sounds so powerful and beautiful that it seemed to shake the space station itself. Every alien in the room felt it in their bones, their circuits, their energy matrices, their gas particles, their crystal structures. They felt it in parts of themselves they had not known existed, and then, just as suddenly as it had built up, the music became soft again. It was like the calm after a storm, peaceful and gentle and full of hope. The aliens found themselves breathing together, even the ones who did not need to breathe. They found themselves existing together in a way that none of them had ever experienced before. The music began to reach its end. There was a final, beautiful melody that seemed to say goodbye to everything it had shared. It was sad to hear it ending, but also wonderful to have heard it at all. The last notes faded away and the room fell into complete silence. No one moved. No one spoke. They all just sat there, trying to understand what had just happened to them. Dr. Vasquez reached over and pressed the stop button on the boombox. The small red light went out. The silence stretched on and on. The aliens stared at the small human device as if it contained all the mysteries of the universe, which in a way it did. The silence in the room was so complete that Dr. Vasquez could hear the quiet hum of the space station's air recycling system. She looked around at the aliens who had been laughing at her just minutes before. Now they all stared at the small boombox as if it might explode at any moment. Ambassador Zethkri was the first to try to speak. His crystal body was still trembling slightly, making tiny bell-like sounds with each small movement. What de? He began, then stopped. He tried again. What was that? His voice was different now. Before, it had been full of pride and superiority. Now it sounded small and confused, like a child asking a question about something too big to understand. Doctor Vasquez smiled gently. That was Symphony No. 9 by Ludwig van Beethoven. We call it the Choral Symphony because it has singing in the final movement. Singing? Asked Commander Ishandra. Her purple gas form was still moving in slow, rhythmic patterns. She seemed unable to control it. You mean there are more sounds? Oh yes, said Dr. Vasquez. That was just the first movement. There are 3 more parts to this symphony. And this is just one piece of music by one human composer. The Mindari, who had felt sadness for the first time, was holding his large gray head in his hands. I do not understand what happened to me, he said. I felt things that have no logical purpose. I experienced emotions that served no function, but they were were beautiful. How is this possible? Asked another Mindari. We have studied human brains. They are simple compared to ours. They process information slowly. They are limited by emotion and bias. How could such beings create something that affects us so deeply? Dr. Vasquez walked closer to the table. The aliens watched her every movement as if she might do something magical at any moment. You want to know how it's possible? Let me tell you about the man who wrote this music. She sat down and folded her hands in front of her. Ludwig van Beethoven was born over 250 years ago on Earth. When he was young, he could hear perfectly. He loved music more than anything else in the world. But as he grew older, he began to lose his hearing. Lose his hearing? Asked one of the luminants. Its light was still pulsing softly in rhythm with something only it could hear. You mean his sound sensors stopped working? Yes, said Dr. Vasquez. By the time he wrote this symphony, he was completely deaf. He could not hear any sounds at all. Not voices, not instruments, not even thunder or birds singing. The collective robots tilted their heads in unison. This was their way of showing confusion. Error in logic detected, said one of them. How can a being create organized sound when it cannot perceive sound? That is exactly what we thought was impossible, said Dr. Vasquez. But Beethoven did not create music with his ears. He created it with his heart and his mind and his soul. He felt the music inside himself and wrote it down so others could play it. She paused and looked around the room. Every alien was listening to her with complete attention. These beings who commanded fleets of starships and created technologies that could reshape planets were hanging on every word of a story about one deaf human. But here is the most amazing part, Dr. Vasquez continued. Beethoven wrote this symphony during the worst time of his life. He was sick, he was poor, he was lonely, and he was completely cut off from the world of sound that he loved. He had every reason to give up and stop creating music. But he did not stop, said Ambassador Zethkri. It was not a question. Something in the music had told him this. No, he did not stop, Dr. Vasquez confirmed. Instead, he wrote his most beautiful and hopeful piece of music. In the final movement, there are human voices singing words about joy and brotherhood and how all people in the universe are connected to each other. Commander Ashandra's gas form swirled faster. Connected? But we are all different species. We have different biologies, different ways of thinking, different technologies. How can we be connected? The music just showed you how, said Dr. Vasquez. Simply. The aliens looked at each other. They remembered what had happened when the music played. They remembered moving together, breathing together, existing together in perfect harmony despite all their differences. This is not the only human music? Asked one of the Mindari, his voice full of something that might have been hunger. Dr. Vasquez smiled wider. This is just the beginning. Humans have been making music for thousands of years. We have created millions of different songs and symphonies and pieces. Every human culture has its own music. Every generation adds new sounds and new ideas. She reached into a bag beside her chair and pulled out several more devices. Some looked like the boombox but smaller. Others were flat rectangles that glowed, with their own light. One was just a small cylinder, no bigger than her thumb. We have music for every feeling you can imagine, she said. Sad music for when we lose someone we love. Happy music for when we celebrate. Angry music for when we fight against injustice. Peaceful music for when we want to rest. Every feeling? Asked the Luminant. But there are so many feelings. We just discovered that we have feelings. How many are there? We are still discovering new ones, said Dr. Vasquez. And we make new music for each one we find. Ambassador Zethkri's crystal body was resonating with a low, thoughtful tone. You said this Beethoven human lived over 200 years ago. What about humans who make music now? We have thousands of musicians alive today, said Dr. Vasquez. And millions more who play music just for fun. Some use instruments made of wood and metal. Others use electronic devices that create sounds no natural instrument could make. Some just use their voices. Just voices? Asked Commander Ashandra. You can make music with no tools at all? The human voice is the first and most beautiful instrument, said Dr. Vasquez. Every human is born with the ability to make music. The collective robots were processing this information with visible difficulty. Their lights blinked rapidly as they tried to understand. Every human can create this effect? This harmony between different species? Every human has the potential, said Dr. Vasquez. Some develop it more than others. But yes, any human child can learn to make music that touches the heart. Heart? Repeated one of the Mindari slowly. We do not have hearts. We have thought centers. But the music touched our thought centers in ways that pure logic never has. Music is not logic, said Dr. Vasquez. Music is something else entirely. It is organized sound, yes, but it is also organized feeling. It is organized time and organized beauty and organized truth. Truth? Asked the Luminant. What truth can sound waves contain? Dr. Vasquez thought for a moment. The truth that all conscious beings are connected. The truth that beauty exists and is important. The truth that even in the darkest times there is still hope. The truth that differences in species or technology or biology do not matter when it comes to the deepest experiences of existence. She gestured to the other devices she had brought. Each of these contains different kinds of human music. We have something called jazz, which is about freedom and improvisation. We have rock music, which is about power and rebellion. We have classical music like what you just heard. We have folk music that tells stories of ordinary people. We have electronic music that explores what sounds are possible with technology. How many types are there? Asked Ambassador Zethkri. Hundreds, said Dr. Vasquez. Maybe thousands. Humans organize music in many different ways. By the instruments. Used by the feelings expressed by the cultures that created it, by the time periods when it was made. The aliens sat in stunned silence as they tried to comprehend what they were hearing. They had thought humans were primitive beings who had only recently learned to travel between stars. Now they were discovering that these primitive creatures had created an art form so sophisticated that it could reach across the vast differences between species and touch something universal in all conscious minds. "We wish to hear more," said the collective, speaking for the first time with something that sounded like desire instead of just logic. "Yes," agreed Ambassador Zethkri, "we must hear more. We must understand how this is possible." "We thought we were the advanced civilizations," said Commander Ishandra softly. "We thought we had evolved beyond you. But you have achieved something we never even imagined was possible." Dr. Vasquez nodded and reached for one of the other devices. "Then let me play you something completely different. This is called jazz music. It was created by humans who were oppressed and enslaved, but who found freedom in sound." She paused, with her hand on the device. "Are you ready to discover what human creativity really means?" Every alien in the room leaned forward. Dr. Vasquez picked up a different device. This one was smaller than the boombox and had a smooth, black surface that reflected the lights of the room. She touched it gently and it lit up with soft blue patterns. "This music is very different from the symphony," she said. "It comes from humans who lived in pain and hardship, but who found a way to turn that pain into something beautiful." She pressed a symbol on the device's surface. The music that came out was unlike anything the aliens had heard before. It started with a single instrument that sounded like a human voice, but made of metal. The sound was smooth and sad and somehow alive. "What instrument makes that sound?" asked Ambassador Zethkri. His crystal body was already beginning to resonate with the new frequencies. "It is called a saxophone," said Dr. Vasquez. "It is made of brass metal, but when a human breathes through it, it can sound like it is crying or laughing or singing." The music continued and more instruments joined in. There was a gentle drum beat that sounded like a heartbeat. There were strings that whispered like wind through trees. And there was something else, something the aliens had never heard before. "The music is changing," said one of the Mindari. "It is not following the same pattern as the symphony. It is going in directions I cannot predict." Dr. Vasquez smiled. "That is called improvisation. The musicians are creating new parts of the song as they play it. They know the basic melody, but they add their own ideas and feelings to it in real time." "Creating while performing?" asked Commander Ishandra. Her gas form was swirling in new patterns, trying to follow the unpredictable flow of the music. "How do they coordinate without planning?" "They listen to each other," said Dr. Vasquez. "They feel what the other musicians are doing and they respond to it. It is like having a conversation but with music instead of words." The collective robots were having trouble processing this concept. Their lights blinked rapidly as they tried to understand. "Efficiency error detected. Random creation during performance leads to mistakes and disharmony." But even as they said this, they were moving in rhythm with the music. The jazz was teaching them something their programming had never considered, that not everything valuable had to be planned and calculated. Sometimes the most beautiful things happened when intelligent beings trusted each other enough to create something together, without knowing what the final result would be. The saxophone played a solo that seemed to tell a story of longing and hope. It rose and fell like a voice speaking about dreams that might never come true but were still worth dreaming. The aliens found themselves leaning forward, wanting to hear what the instrument would say next. The musician playing that instrument, said Dr. Vasquez during a quiet moment, cannot see the future of the song any better than you can. He is discovering it at the same time you are. Impossible, said the luminance, but their light was pulsing with excitement instead of disbelief. Advanced beings plan their actions. We calculate outcomes before we act. Sometimes, said Dr. Vasquez, the most advanced thing you can do is trust your instincts and create something that has never existed before. The music shifted again. Now there was a piano that danced around the saxophone like two friends playing together. The drums became more complex, creating rhythms that seemed impossible but somehow made perfect sense. The aliens realized they were witnessing something extraordinary, intelligent beings creating beauty together in real time, without scripts or programs or predetermined outcomes. This is how humans solve problems, said Dr. Vasquez as the music continued. We do not always plan everything in advance. Sometimes we work together and trust that our combined creativity will find solutions we could never discover alone. The Mindari were experiencing something that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence. They had always believed that the highest form of thinking was pure logic, with clear goals and calculated steps. But this music was showing them a different kind of intelligence, one that could create beauty and meaning from uncertainty and spontaneity. We have been wrong about human intelligence, said one of the Mindari quietly. We thought your emotions made you weak and inefficient, but you use emotions as tools for creation. The jazz music reached a section where all the instruments played together in a complex harmony that was both planned and improvised at the same time. It was like watching master craftsmen work together on a sculpture, each one adding their own expertise while staying in perfect coordination with the others. Ambassador Zethkri's crystal body was now humming with multiple frequencies at once, trying to match the complex harmonies. This requires a level of trust and communication that we have never achieved in our species, he said. How do humans learn to work together like this? We practice, said Dr. Vasquez. But more importantly, we learn to listen to each other. We learn to value what others can contribute, even when it is different from what we would contribute ourselves. The music began to wind down, but instead of ending with a grand finale like the symphony, it ended gently, like friends saying goodbye. After a long conversation, the final notes hung in the air for a moment, then faded into silence. The aliens sat quietly, processing what they had just experienced. This music had taught them something completely different from the symphony. Where Beethoven's music had shown them the power of individual human creativity overcoming suffering, the jazz had shown them the power of humans working together to create something none of them could have made alone. We want to learn this, said Commander Ishandra suddenly. We want to learn how to create together like this. Dr. Vasquez reached for another device. There is so much more, she said. Each type of human music teaches different lessons about life and creativity and working together. She held up a device that looked like it was made of crystal and metal combined. This contains what we call electronic music. It is made by humans using technology, but not in the way you might expect. Technology music? Asked the collective. This was something they thought they might understand. Yes, but with a difference, said Dr. Vasquez. Instead of using technology to make music more efficient or logical, humans use it to explore new kinds of beauty. They ask questions like, what would music sound like if it came from the stars? What would music sound like if colors could sing? What would music sound like if time moved backwards? She activated the device. The sounds that emerged were unlike anything in nature or any instrument the aliens had heard before. There were deep, pulsing rhythms that seemed to come from the heart of a planet. There were high, sparkling melodies that sounded like starlight given voice. There were sounds that seemed to stretch and bend time itself. How is this possible? Asked the luminance. As beings of pure energy, they found this music particularly fascinating. It seemed to speak directly to their energy-based existence. Humans took their technology and asked it new questions, said Dr. Vasquez. Instead of just using computers to calculate and store data, They taught computers to be creative partners. The machines help humans explore sounds that no natural instrument could make. The electronic music built into something that sounded like the birth of a universe. There were layers upon layers of sound, each one more complex than the last, but all working together to create something that felt both ancient and futuristic at the same time. "Your species uses technology for art," said the collective in wonder. "We use technology for efficiency and power." "But you use it to explore beauty." "We use it for both," said Dr. Vasquez. "But we never forgot that the purpose of all technology should be to help conscious beings live better, more beautiful, more meaningful lives." The aliens began to understand that they had completely misunderstood what it meant to be an advanced civilization. They had focused on building bigger ships, more powerful weapons, more efficient systems. But humans had focused on building more beautiful experiences, more meaningful connections, more creative possibilities. "We have been measuring advancement wrong," said Ambassador Zethkri. "We thought advancement meant more power and more control. But you have achieved something we never considered. You have learned to use your power to create beauty and meaning." Dr. Vasquez smiled and looked around the room at all the alien beings who were now seeing humanity in a completely new way. "Would you like to hear more?" 6 months later, the Galactic Council Station looked very different. Where once there had been cold metal corridors and sterile meeting rooms, now there were spaces filled with strange new sounds. Crystal beings hummed in harmony with floating gas creatures. Metal robots moved in rhythm with energy beings who pulsed like living light shows. Dr. Vasquez walked through the station's new cultural center, a place that had been built specifically for sharing human music with alien species. Through one window, she could see Ambassador Zethkri working with a group of human musicians. They were creating something that had never existed before. Music that used crystal resonance frequencies alongside traditional Earth instruments. "The harmonics are perfect," she heard Zethkri saying to a human violinist. "When you play that note, my crystal matrix creates an echo that extends the sound into dimensions your ears cannot hear." "And when you resonate at that frequency," the human replied, "it makes my violin strings vibrate in ways that create new overtones. We are making music that neither of our species could create alone." Dr. Vasquez smiled and continued walking. In another room, she found Commander Ishandra working with a human singer. The gas being had learned to control her particle density to create different acoustic effects, while the human had learned to sing in ways that caused Ishandra's form to create visual patterns that matched the music. "Watch this," said the human singer, a young woman named Maria. She sang a long, flowing note, and Ishandra's purple gas swirled into the shape of a flower that bloomed and changed colors with the melody. "Beautiful," said Dr. Vasquez from the doorway. "Dr. Vasquez," said Commander Ishandra, her gas form rippling with excitement. "We have discovered that my species can create visual music. When humans sing, I can make pictures in the air that show what the music looks like." In the central meeting room of the Cultural Center, Dr. Vasquez found the most remarkable sight of all. The Mindari, who had never experienced emotions before hearing human music, were working with human composers to create something they called feeling symphonies. These were pieces of music designed to help other species learn about emotions they had never felt before. "This section is about hope," explained one of the Mindari to a group of visiting alien diplomats. "The human musicians taught us that hope is the feeling of believing that good things can happen even when everything seems dark." The music played, and Dr. Vasquez watched as the visiting aliens experienced hope for the first time. She saw their faces change, their bodies relax, their spirits lift in ways that no amount of logical explanation could have achieved. "And this part is about wonder," continued the Mindari. "Wonder is what you feel when you discover something beautiful that you did not know existed." The irony was not lost on Dr. Vasquez. The Mindari were now teaching other species about wonder by using music. When just 6 months ago they had never felt wonder themselves, the biggest surprise had come from the collective. The robot beings had not only learned to appreciate music, but they had become some of the most enthusiastic creators. They had discovered that their network of billions of connected robots could create music on a scale never before imagined. Dr. Vasquez found their representative in a room full of screens showing star charts. "We are composing a symphony using the orbital patterns of entire solar systems," the robot explained. "Each planet is a note, each moon is a harmony. We are turning the movement of celestial bodies into music that will play for thousands of years." "How many robots are involved in this project?" asked Dr. Vasquez. "All of them," said the robot simply. "Every robot in the collective network is now part of the largest musical collaboration in galactic history. We are creating music with instruments the size of planets." But perhaps the most touching development was happening in a small room where the Luminants were working with human children. The energy beings had discovered that young humans learned music differently than adults, and they wanted to understand how creativity developed. "Sing whatever comes into your mind," a Luminant was saying to a group of human children who had been brought to the station. The being's light pulsed gently, creating a warm, safe feeling in the room. The children sang a simple song about friendship and sharing. It was not complex or sophisticated, but the Luminant glowed brighter and brighter as they sang. "Why does their simple song affect you so much?" asked Dr. Vasquez. "Because," said the Luminant, "they sing with complete honesty. Adult humans have learned to hide their feelings sometimes, but these young ones sing exactly what they feel. Their music is pure truth." Dr. Vasquez realized that the aliens were not just learning about human music. They were learning about humanity itself. Each species was discovering different aspects of what made humans unique among the galaxies. Intelligent races, the crystal beings, had learned that humans could find beauty in resonance and harmony. The gas beings had learned that humans could express complex emotions through sound. The telepathic beings had learned that humans could feel deeply and share those feelings with others. The robots had learned that humans could use technology creatively instead of just efficiently. The energy beings had learned that humans valued honesty and innocence. But the most important change was not in what each species had learned about humans. It was in what they had learned about themselves and each other. A few days later, Dr. Vasquez received a message that made her smile. It was from the Galactic Council's main governing body. They wanted to establish the Human Cultural Exchange Program as a permanent part of galactic civilization. They were asking humans to travel to alien worlds not as junior partners or primitive curiosities, but as teachers of something the galaxy desperately needed. That evening, Dr. Vasquez stood in the main observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. She was not alone. Representatives from every species in the galaxy were there with her, and they were all doing something that would have been impossible 6 months ago. They were making music together. Ambassador Zethkri's crystal body provided the deep, resonant bass notes. Commander Ashandra's gas form created rhythm and visual patterns. The Mindari sang harmonies that they created with their minds and shared telepathically. The collective robots provided complex rhythmic patterns that no biological being could maintain. The Luminants created light shows that danced with the music, and in the center of it all, Dr. Vasquez hummed a simple human melody that tied all the different parts together. The music they created was unlike anything that had ever existed in the galaxy. It was not human music or alien music. It was galactic music, created by dozens of different species working together as one unified orchestra. "We have received signals," announced one of the collective robots during a pause in their music making. "Deep space communication arrays have detected responses to our musical broadcasts." "Responses?" asked Dr. Vasquez. "Unknown civilizations," said the robot. "Species we have never contacted before. They have heard our music transmissions and are sending their own music back to us. They want to join our galactic community." Dr. Vasquez felt her heart swell with emotion. Music was doing what diplomacy and trade and military alliances had never been able to do. It was bringing the galaxy together. "How many new civilizations have responded?" she asked. 17 so far," said Ambassador Zefkri. And the number grows each day. It seems that music is truly a universal language. Commander Ishandra swirled thoughtfully. We spent thousands of years building the galactic community through politics and economics. But humans have accomplished in 6 months what we could not accomplish in millennia. Music finds what connects us instead of what divides us, said Dr. Vasquez. It speaks to the part of consciousness that all thinking beings share. As if to prove her point, their communication system suddenly came alive with a new signal. It was a musical transmission from a civilization so far away that their light had taken millions of years to reach the station. The music was alien beyond imagination, created by beings with biology and thought processes completely unlike anything in the known galaxy. But underneath the strange sounds and impossible rhythms, the emotional message was clear. We hear you. We understand. We want to be part of this harmony you have created. Dr. Vasquez looked around at all the alien beings who had become her friends and musical partners. 6 months ago, they had laughed at human culture. Now they were helping to spread that culture across the entire galaxy, creating connections between species that had never met and might never meet in person. What should we call this new galactic community? Asked one of the mind Ari. Dr. Vasquez thought about Beethoven, the deaf composer who had never heard his greatest work. She thought about all the human musicians throughout history who had turned their pain and joy into beauty. She thought about the power of music to reach across any barrier and touch the hearts of any conscious being. Let's call it the harmony, she said. And somewhere in the cosmos, the music played on, drawing new voices into the song that would unite the galaxy in ways no one had ever dreamed possible.